See, when are you gonna say something, bro?
Hey, listen, Chris is fucking killing it right now.
He's got an entire slate. I got to get my stuff in now because I'm telling you, he's.
Fight about it.
Fight.
Want to fight about it?
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So glad you could join us again. You're going to be glad you did. You probably, I mean, we know why you're here because you've seen the promos. I was literally just saying before we hit record that, you know, it's not often you get a chance to meet a legend and to have him on the show. But Steven, you did it again, and we have an absolute legend coming on the show today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what can you say about Stitch? He is the premier cup man in combat sports. You can't even break it down to one aspect of it, regardless if we're talking about MMA, boxing. You know, even when it comes to the silver screen, he's the man that you get that you always see in the fighter's corner trying to clean them up, giving them one more round. So.
One more round. That's the motto. And you're right. It's not just one aspect because you're right. It's books, it's movies, it's UFC, it's boxing, MMA. He's got instructional videos. There's nothing the guy hasn't done. Cutman is putting a pretty small label on all the things that this man is about. We're going to get into some of it today. So without further ado, you guys know him, you love him. It's Jacob Stitch Duran. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? First of all, let me give Steven some props, man. You know, one thing I appreciate is being on time and communications, and this man's on top of the world, man. So he got me up at 7 a.m. just to make check. You know, I always tell people, because I stay so busy, is, you know, confirm the day before and then an hour before. Well, at 7 o'clock in the morning, got my ass up and I looked and so I think about 7:10, I looked again and I got my information to come on board. But thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate
Absolutely. It. Well, the guy's got a passion, and you know a little something about that, having a passion for what you do. Let's start at the only place to start. Let's start at the beginning because obviously you weren't always a cut man. And I pull this from the book. You've written a couple books from the fields to the garden, and I assume this alluding from the fields that you literally used to work in as a child to probably Madison Square Garden. And so just kind of elaborate briefly on that. Most people know your story, but for ones that don't, you know, this journey that you've taken to get to the status you're at now.
Well, you know, I think it's pretty much the same journey we've all taken, Chris. You know, we all had dreams, you know, doing something. You're always dreaming, but as a farm worker, I was dreaming of becoming a professional baseball player, and walked on to a college and didn't have a car. And so I would hitchhike back home. And so I just left the team and didn't talk about grants or scholarships. And I joined the Air Force, and that was 1972. In 1974, I said, if I went to the Orient, I'd want to study the martial arts. So they sent me to a place called Thailand during the Vietnam War. I didn't know what Thailand was.
Martial arts. That's a good spot for MMA.
Yeah, it was. I saw my first Muay Thai fight, and on the base they had Taekwondo for the GIs, which Taekwondo Thailand to me sounds like the same, right?
Well, sure.
So I started training there, and the Koreans left, and the Thais took over, and they kind of transitioned us into the Muay Thai system. So I had the benefit of both, and then got back to the States. I got into boxing to improve my hands, and started working with amateur fighters, boxers at that time at King's Gym in Oakland. And moved out to the suburbs to Fairfield in California and opened up a school of kickboxing with just a credit card. I'm sure how crazy I was. But I already had top trainers. I was working with top trainers and had the dream to move to Vegas and be a cut man. You know, I was a trainer, and you're right. A lot of people don't realize that I used to work with world-class fighters in boxing and kickboxing. And but being a cut man was my passion. And yeah, I made the move to Vegas almost 29 years ago to follow my dreams, and here we are talking to you guys.
What, I guess, motivated you to make that move to Cutman? Because I mean, you've taken it to a whole nother level. I mean, you have really pioneered and developed what it means to be a Cutman, and now people look to you to be better Cutman. The student has become the master, but you had to start somewhere. What brought you into that? I mean, you were a fighter, you were doing the fighting things, and then something said, you know what, I want to take care of the fighter.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. And yeah, I was a trainer, and but I being a cut man kind of floated up to the top, and working at that time with boxing and kickboxing, and so I talked to my wife and I said, look, I left to move to Vegas, and I worked for RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company. I was over them for 23 years. I asked for a job transfer, and it came out of the blue, and they were downsizing, and they gave me a week to get to Vegas, and I talked them into 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I transferred my school to a student, Randy Bassard. I put sold my house, put my family in the U-Haul, and drove 9 hours to Vegas, and follow my dreams. And yeah, my first big world title fight here was my welcome out fight. It was Raul Marquez fought Keith Mullins. Raul was the IBF, I think, super middleweight champ from Houston, and he got 5 cuts here, and then up here, and kept him in the game. And people said, "Man, who is this guy?" So that was the start of my career in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen you on the Vegas screen. We've seen you all over every type of screen. But I've heard you get into that story even more. One of the other stories that really stuck with me is you were telling the story about Tyson Fury. I believe it was Tyson Fury, and how you got involved with them because he didn't really have a cut man. He had someone in the role, but they weren't trained. And I believe it was actually the person filling that role as a cut man that requested you to come in. When you look back at where you started to where you are now, and you kind of see that happen, it's almost like a replay of your life in a sense that, hey, you were just a guy in the corner, and then you decided to take it seriously and elevate your game, if you will.
Yeah, it was a crazy idea, but sometimes crazy ideas become reality, right? And I did. When I made the move, I figured I took a $25,000 a year cut and pay, so to have a wife and a family to support you, that meant a lot, right? But yeah, who would have thought that I would have been at this level? I know what hit me the first time was when I went to a pride fight in Japan, and we're at the Tokyo Dome, and I look up, and they just full capacity with people, and I'm thinking, man, they're all looking right at me, right in the center of the ring, kind of hit me. And what's this guy from Planada that was an old farm worker doing here in Tokyo, in front of all these thousands and millions, thousands of people, it was insane. It was that moment hit me like, wow, I'm here, wow.
What was the moment that you became Stitch Duran? Everybody else people were calling you Stitch Duran. People knew who you were. People already had you elevated to the level that you were at, but there's a moment where you finally accept it for yourself. What was that moment for you?
Well, I don't know if I have accepted it yet, but there's been a lot of accolades leading me up to this. But that Raul Marquez fight was a pivotal moment in my career, and that's how I got to be with the UFC. I knew Dana before the gyms. We were always in the same gyms, and I was doing a K1. I think Kimo was fighting Bob Sapp, and I was working with Bob Sapp, and Mike Tyson's in the audience, and Dana's in the audience, and Dana says, "Hey man, give me your card." The next day he calls, says, "Look, we bought the UFC, and would you be interested in being a cut man?" And of course I jumped on the opportunity, not knowing what the program was, but it was an opportunity, and I think that took me to a different level for exposure and performance, because the UFC, they all got cut,
Yeah,
a majority of them get cut. And the thing about it, we talked about it yesterday with friends, is MMA was such a new sport that these guys didn't know how to wrap hands and work cuts. So Dana was smart enough to bring me and Leon Tabs in as the house cutman. And, I ended up wrapping, I'll do 7-8 fighters in one night, that's pretty common. They all wanted me to wrap their hands, so, but that was that confidence level. But yeah, it's been a journey.
You have your career with the UFC, and then you kind of move on to new things. I've seen you've got the one more round instructional videos. I want to get into that. I mean, you literally invented your own KO swell, as you call it. Now, what is next? You've done all these things. Again, the books, the movies, all the things. You've been in all the sports. I know you're kind of still on call every once in a while for the right guy to get in there and serve as the cut man, but your passion seems really about teaching people how to take care of the fighter. I just want to know, like, where does it go from here?
You're pretty good, man.
Oh, thank you.
I've done a lot of interviews. The way you approach with these questions is pretty amazing. But yeah, you know what, man, I got a lot of things that are just brewing. That to this point, I swear, I have never asked for one job. I've just been real proud, and I've had opportunities to work with Floyd Mayweather, but I never did because I never said nothing, and so on and so and so. But yeah, that's who would have thought I would have been in this position, and teaching is my number one thing. So there's programs that I'm doing right now. I'm working with a company called it's Stitch Cream and the Cut Cream. These guys, Jason Washington and Keith High, created a cream it's for the healing agents. It expedites the healing process of cuts. And when they call me, it being through my marketing through RJ Reynolds, they called me and wanted me to work with them. And I said, well, what proof source do you have? Well, they didn't. And so I took them to the bare knuckle fights. That's when I was working with Dave Feldman when they first started. Great promotion, great people. And they all got cut. So Jay would go and they would sew them up in the dressing room, and he would take a picture of them and give them the cut cream. And a week later, they would send a picture back, and the results have been tremendous. So I'm working on that. We're taking that out now. I just Sunday I got inducted into the National Boxing Hall of Fame, and but better yet, I mean, which is great. It's a great honor. They're filming a documentary on my life based on the book From the Fields to the Garden. Well, that's our last final day of filming. What a way to end the documentary, right?
Wow.
Getting inducted into the Hall of Fame.
So timing works.
yeah. So, now what they're going to do, because I send Michael B. Jordan, his people, the trailer that we have, and Elizabeth Raposa, one of the executive producers, says, do you want me to send them this one, or do you want to include the Hall of Fame? So we're going to shoot the Hall of Fame into the trailer and then send it up. They're helping us take it up to the people that show, So, but I'm working on that. And then even more so, there's a documentary I did 24 years ago called Boxer's Nightmare. And I did it with a young kid, John Barnhouse, who just graduated from the American Film Institute. And at first I thought we were going to do instructional videos, right? And but we ended up getting so many interviews from so many people that we created a documentary called Boxer's Nightmare. And I never did nothing with it. Well, John passed away within the last year, and like I said, I hadn't seen this film in 20-something years, and I looked at it as a tribute to him, and I thought, wow, everybody I have in here, as I look at them now, are all Hall of Famers. Mike Tyson, Fernando Vargas, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Mills Lane, Joe Cortez, Richard Steele, Mark Ratner, Emmanuel Stewart, Chuck Bodak. I'm looking at Joe Lewis's daughter. I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, shit, everybody here is Hall of Famers. Half of them are dead. But the truth that they brought out on the issues that were hurting boxing at that time, they had solutions for. And Mike Tyson says, guys like me, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Oscar De La Hoya, when we fight, get some of our money, let's give it to these guys. Let's put up a pension plan or insurance plan for these guys. So these were answers that we came out with, and nothing's ever been done. So as a tribute to John, when I saw this film, I think, wow, everything that was happening there is now happening now still, but now it includes MMA, dementia pugilistica, unfair practices, contracts, dehydration. So my next project now is to get current interviews with MMA guys and find out from other people of high authority why nothing's been done for these fighters. Joe Lewis's daughter finishes the tape by saying, I'll let you listen to how this documentary ended with Joe Lewis's daughter, and she basically said the whole thing. It's a little.
You build a business, any other business.
Listen.
You build it to last. You put health insurance, you put pension plans together. Every other major sport has these things. Why not boxing? Why not boxing?
Right, very simple. This is such a major sport. It's an A-level sport, and none of us, me, trainers, top world trainers, none of us have to be certified to be considered professionals. Every other sport does, and that's what's hurting in this game. And so that's my project, man, is to go out there and make this game a lot better. I think 2 weeks ago, people always ask me. I get requests, what's it take to be a cut man? Boom, boom, boom. And so 2 weeks ago, I did a seminar video type showing how to wrap hands for boxing, for MMA, for working on swelling, the tools that we need, the medications we use, how to work on cuts. So I put a video out and giving the fighter one more round. That's available at stitchduran.com. So you could either buy the whole thing, it's like $50, buy the whole thing and learn A to Z and keep it forever, or you can rent one of the wrapping hands or working cuts. That's like $10. It's not about the money, it's about bringing it out to the public and teaching these guys, because there's so many mistakes that are happening with cutmen and trainers that it breaks my heart, man. It's knowing the game. But thanks for asking. And then another thing, and Steven will probably like this, is I have a cannabis line coming out hopefully in June or August. It's called. See, I knew I'd get a smile on your face.
Now you gotta go.
It's called,
Let me know. I'll try some samples out.
Yeah. Well, here's the storyline behind it, right? So when the people that are helping me distribute the CBD products and all that, the real high end, I think they do like Snoop Dogg and Mountain John and all that. So they talked to me about it. And I've had other companies talk to me, but they haven't come forward. But I told them, I said, look, if you could, best weed I ever smoked was a Euro station in Thailand, Thai Stick. If you could create something as good as that, we'll call it Thai Stitch. So Thai Stitch will be in the market soon.
There you go. Now you heard it here, guys. Thai Stitch.
I knew I'd get a smile on his face, And,
I love it.
So,
We're gonna have to call Kai. We're gonna have to call Kai. Kai's gonna want some Thai Stitch. For that, first of all, congratulations on the boxing Hall of Fame. We were gonna ask about that later. You bring it up, so we congratulate you.
Thank you.
Now, it's awesome. You obviously deserve to be there. I hope that you sincerely know that, because you've earned your spot for sure. Thank you for your military service.
Thank you.
I was in myself in the Army, and I was a medic, so I understand a lot of things that you talk about in your videos with the Adrenaline 1000, the difference between the vasoconstrictors and the anticoagulants and the dehydrators, like the Quick Aid and stuff. You talk about the certification. So you're teaching people how to do this. You don't have to be certified to do this. The evolution of boxing into what all the other sports have. And I think it's important to bring that up, because honestly, out of all these other major sports, boxing is by far and away the oldest of all of these sports. So it's been around the longest, and yet it has maybe the slowest amount of evolution through this. So for you to take on that project, I do think it's important, especially for what these fighters go through, and the fact that there's so many more factions of it now. It's not just boxing. It is MMA, it is BKFC, and all the different facets of it. That's a big project to take on. Where's your focus? Where does it start, so that you can spread it throughout the system?
Well, it starts even talking to you guys, and what I've done, and I'll do with you guys if you're interested, is after this show is send me your email and I'll send you the film and take a look at it, and then maybe we could do another show down the road, and it's just education. So that's the project. I'm not doing it for the money by any means. That's why I'm giving it to all you guys. And once I get, the new interviews, then I could do something and just, make it available to everybody to watch, and learn. And I've done seminars. The last big one I did was in Mexico City. It was like 120 people and 40 on Zoom. But I don't certify them. Because I don't want them to go out and say, oh yeah, I spent, that weekend with Stitch, learn how to be a cut man. I'm a cut man. You got to go out there and just kind of, start working based on the techniques that I gave you, and just learn and go.
That's what you're saying in the middle. You can't just go, take a Gracie seminar and all of a sudden, you're a top level BJJ guy, which I've done, and I'm not. It's also about having the right mindset and the right heart set which is something that I think has elevated you above other folks in your field. Not that other people don't have that heart that you have, but one of the big things that you glean if you go watch your interviews, watch your speeches, watch your interactions, is the personal relationships that you have with these fighters. So many stories end with the fighter, thanking you personally. You can be my cut man anytime. You can call me son, the famous line there. I mean, just you've really been about the personal relationships. Talk a little bit about why that is important to you and why that's something that you've kind of just naturally done. It just seems natural for you.
Yeah, 100% natural is right, but you have had to be in those positions to understand the mentality of these guys, right? And you're right, they're all modern day gladiators, but they're all babies deep inside, and I know that. And my job is to take care of the baby. And there was a Caleb Plant that just Friday was his 10th anniversary for being a professional for 10 years. So his wife Jordan asked me if I could do a little clip. She was going to get a collection of clips, kind of, complimenting him and all that. And my thing to him was, who would have thought 10 years ago I would have been giving you these accolades and all that. So, but the thing I remember most about working with you in your last fight is before the fights even started, when we got in the dressing room, we're all just standing around doing nothing. And he comes up to me and gives me a hug and tells me he loves me, and they took a picture of that. So I did that little video for them, and then I sent them the picture where he's hugging me and says he loves me. And I've gotten many, many, many of those, and that's a manly thing, So and that's a respect factor. That's what I was talking about, Tyson Fury. You talked about him, when I worked with him the first time, I told him I'm gonna keep ice on you every round. I'm not gonna wait till you start swallowing. I want to make sure you walk out like you walk in. And as I'm saying goodbye, he's in the shorts, ready to jump in the shower. And I'm going home, and he gives me a hug and a kiss and says, "Thanks for keeping ice on me." Something as simple as that.
Yeah,
it means a lot.
I just want to give you a minute to kind of take a breath and brace yourself for it, because as we talked about, I'm about to let Steven loose. It's time to open up the gate, Kentucky Derby style, and let the man start heading around the track. That's right. Loosen up, my friend. It's go time. Steven, I know you're chomping at the bit. I know you've been ready. I know you
always, yeah.
Let's go.
It's always
Let's
fun catching up with Stitch first and foremost. He's always got interesting things going on, as he was already alluding to. He's got the documentary, and if you think about it right now, like a lot of people are doing a lot of content and stuff like that from the combat sports world. As you said, yours is coming up. I believe. We have Vinny Panzianza is going to be finishing his up soon as well. And for people in the bigger silver screen news, The Rock just started training for the Mark Kerr movie. So I gotta ask you, brother. When now that we know, the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight is an actual sanctioned fight. There's no crazy headgear. There's no judges, or it's not a sanction. It's a sanctioned fight. All that things of that nature. We've seen Mike say multiple times, like, he's not fighting this because he wants money or anything like that. He's doing this for boxing. Do you think that we're not going to see the version that we've seen fight Roy Jones Jr. A handful years ago? We might see a version that has something to prove.
Nah, you know what? You can beat anything, but you can't beat time, right? And Mike's a great guy. I've done pads for Mike, and he can crack, and and mentally he still has that I'm Mike Tyson mentality, but eventually that body's going to tell you, and like I say, if I was training Jake Paul, I'd teach him to tie Mike Tyson up every time he tried something for the first 3 rounds to get him tired. And then the youth would take over. But, as it goes, it's not even about that no more. Everything's social media, and these guys, what a combination. Who would have thought Jake Paul would be fighting Mike Tyson, right? And I've worked against Jake Paul, and I've worked against Logan Paul, and they're good guys, man. I got to give them a lot of props. And, they've opened up a can of worms that nobody else would have thought they could do. And that's exposure.
Masters of the media, that's for
Yeah.
sure. 100%.
Yeah, masters of the media for sure. What do you think about Conor McGregor now being a managing partner, CEO of BKFC with David Feldman? I think that's good news for I think everyone involved.
I think it's a great idea. You know, I mentioned earlier when BKFC first started, Dave Feldman called me, and I started working with him like I did with the UFC, right? And we did all these shows, and it was great promotion, great people. The whole staff is just A1. And then COVID kicked in, right? And so during that COVID, here I live in Las Vegas, and Top Rank called, and they were going to do 16 shows in the bubble at the MGM on ESPN. And none of us are working, so they asked if I'd be interested. And of course, I jumped on the opportunity, right? So Top Rank, once the COVID finished, and it's basically the same program that Burt Watson, myself, and Leon Taz put together in the UFC. That's what we did with Top Rank. And they liked the program so much that once COVID finished, they kept us. And so I talked to Dave when he was in town, and, you know, he's always welcoming me back. But to have Conor McGregor, Conor's a smart man. You know, I said, Conor McGregor, Jake Paul, and Floyd Mayweather are the best marketers in the business. And but for him to realize that the bare knuckle fights, the fights themselves are great. They're entertaining. You know, the cut ratio is extremely high. The knockouts, you know, at first when they first started, they were breaking their hands because they were hitting top of the head or hitting the elbows, and you know they learned to go from the body up. Anyway, but yeah, for Conor to join and be part of that, I think is a major plus for Dave Feldman and the bare knuckle fights.
Good for the fans too, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It was funny because
Conor's an entertainer. He's going to bring entertainment to this.
Yeah, 100%. Just Conor he's a master of what he's done.
Ryan Garcia testing positive for PEDs here. He's claiming that, you know, people are trying to destroy him. I don't think people are trying to destroy you if you test positive for something. That's something you do on your own.
Yeah.
But you know, just had that amazing fight. Looks like it's going to be overturned, and he's probably going to be, you know, on the shelf for quite some time.
You know, I don't really know the full details. I've heard yes and no and this and that, but that was another thing that he did. You know, as his promotional leading up to the fight was silly, but it made a lot of sense dollar-wise, right? I mean, because he's not going to be drinking and all this and before the fight. It's just not his nature. It's not a fighter's nature. It's not. Coaches wouldn't allow him to do that. But you know, he played it off to the people think he's going crazy and all that. And so you know, once I find out whether he tested positive or he didn't, once there's confirmation, because they're still flipping it up, you know. But let's say he did. Then if he did, it's just disrespect to the sport, and you know, whatever penalties come should be applied, just like anybody else. So, but I don't know why he would need that, you know.
I agree. It's like it's one of those things. It's like you're at that level. Like I don't see why he would need something else on top of it. It's a weird thing. And then like we see all kinds of strange things all the time when we're talking combat sports. You know, John Jones is still at the top of it, and he's still outside of, you know, the fighting world. He's probably one of the people you probably wouldn't want to, you know, have around you on a regular basis just because of the nonsense he brings into his life.
Yeah, you know, I've had a great relationship with John. You know, I'm the one that always wrapped his hands and worked his corners, and you know, during the fights, and you know, but I've seen enough boxers go through the same steps of, I don't know what you want to call it, being crazy or what, you know, and still surviving and still being on top of the world. But he's one of those guys, and but as long as he treat me well, I talk well about him. You know?
We've seen.
I have nothing bad to say about him. It's just, you know, he puts himself in these situations. I'll just say it that way sometimes.
And fighters do that. You know, I just don't understand why. You know, they put themselves in that position where they have all this money, and you know the doors are open, and you know something crazier than others. And I've seen it. You know, nothing worse than, especially in boxing. You don't see it in MMA that much. In boxing, these guys with all the diamonds and jewelry. And, to me, I think it's the stupidest thing out there.
Guy that's like the total opposite of that in someone, near and dear to your heart. What do you think about the Nate Diaz and and Jorge Masvidal fight coming up?
I'm working with Nate on this one, and
I knew you were, brother.
And I saw
I was
Jorge.
I'm like, should I even bother asking Team Diaz or Team? I'm like, it's already.
I saw Jorge Masvidal at the Canelo fights last night or Saturday night, and so just a quick hi and bye and all that. But yeah, interesting. When it comes to boxing, and like I say, I'm not much with bullshit. The truth is the truth, and I look at percentages and probabilities and more closer toward the facts. But at this fight, I see it going the distance. But I see Nate doing real well because, like Tyson Fury is, and Floyd Mayweather, his style is not one that you could show somebody how to fight. He has no style, but his style is quite effective. And I know because both him and Nick used to spar with Andre Ward, get Andre Ward ready for world title fights, right?
Well,
so they've been in that capacity. So I see this as a distance fight. I see Nate could high probability of taking that on decision.
Well, the Diaz brothers, obviously they grew up fighting. Their story, well known, and so it's a style that you learn in the streets, not in a gym, and then you build on it in a gym. So
yes,
I do like that observation a lot. You constantly hear the argument about the GOAT in basketball between LeBron and Michael, and the argument, it was a different game, different time. You've been around this sport for a long time. You've seen this sport evolve a few times with the fighters from the 80s, and then Don King comes in and brings promotion and changes the entire game. And now you have the superstar events like UFC 300 we have now. We see how the sport for the audience has changed, but you're behind the scenes. How has it changed from the fighter level, the fighter perspective, and the folks that are back there actually doing the thing?
It's pretty much the same. If it's working well, then why not keep it going here? And the enthusiasm is still there. And the preparations are still there. And you got TV and all that, but it's a different world. It's a circus behind the stages, especially in the big fights when you got all these celebrities that want to make the rounds and say hi to the champ and the opponent and all that. That becomes a different story. But yeah, it's, preparing for the game mentally. Like Frank Mir said in one of his interviews, he said, when I see Stitch walking into the dressing room, my stomach drops because I know it's time to fight, right? And so these guys are cheerful. Randy Couture was always real cheerful. But deep inside, they got those butterflies because they know they're going to war. I had one guy wrapping his hands and he starts crying. He's a very, very popular fighter in those days. And I let him cry, and then finally I finished up and told him, just reassured him that I'm here to take care of you and all that. And he ended up winning the fight. So yeah, those are the moments that are priceless. Not so much the fights anymore. Done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and world title fights, hundreds, and we're the best. And it's the behind the scene stories that go on that are memorable.
What's the big difference? Is there one, like, mentally between the champs and the guys that don't make it? Is there something that you can just kind of tell with all your experience and all the exposure that you've had with fighters and stuff? Is when you work with someone, can you kind of see, this guy's got something that other people don't have?
You'll see a special breed, very limited special breed. But for the most part, once they walk into the dressing room, it's you put your bags down and take a deep breath and, see the guys start putting their shoes on first. And, then you can see a little bit of the nervousness and, you just kind of leave them alone till it's time. And, when I sit them down to wrap their hands, and that's when the reality kicks in for a lot of these guys. And that's where psychology comes in. And I start talking to them and, just kind of taking them out of their nervousness. And at the end, every time I finish wrapping hands, I'll give them a hug, let them know to take care of you like you're my son. So yeah, psychology is a big thing. And you can't teach that. You have to understand it. You being a medic, what these guys were like,
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you guys credit. When I well, I used to do military tours with MMA Junkie Radio, George and Goes, and we went to Afghanistan, and we got to see the true gladiators. You know, a lot of you guys, and you know, they would come and talk to me because, for the most part, we're in the same field, but your job's a little bit more riskier, you know. And, but just the respect factor that they gave me, you know, knowing that these guys were in the trenches, and the respect. So my respect to you guys.
Thank you so much. Again, very humbled and appreciative of that. For those of you who watch the show, you notice I don't usually get too nervous around people. A little nervous around Stitch here. It's kind of great to be in the presence. We like to do a little thing called Fox's Fast Five. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You'll answer them as quickly as possible, and we'll have a little fun with it, and we'll get you on your way if that's all right.
Sure.
Absolutely. Question number 1: what's your favorite homemade meal?
I think my favorite homemade meal is regular tacos. You know, Mexican tacos, rice and beans, bro.
We just
It's
had them
good
last
chili.
night. You can't beat it. You can't.
Yeah.
You like the chili with your tacos?
Oh, of course, yeah, salsa. You know, my wife makes a good one, so yeah, of course. You know, I can eat that anytime. I was
All
born to
homemade.
eat that all the time.
Do you still? Does your wife homemade the tortillas? Because I know it's a pain in the
Yes.
ass.
Well, no,
She does.
not so she can now. That's kind of old school now. Now they
Yeah.
sell them at the store. You know?
It's a big pain. They're great, but it is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
pain. What is the biggest mistake that you see cutmen make today?
Putting swabs in their mouth. I think that's horrible. It's the worst thing. Putting swabs in their mouth or in their ear. That's old school. That's filthy. You know, then you know that the blind is leading the blind.
Who's the best pure fighter that comes to your mind right now? When I say pure fighter, any discipline,
Yeah,
boxing,
Floyd
MMA.
Mayweather had to be the purest fighter out there. I know him. I've seen him in the gym, and I go to the gym all the time. And you know, when he used to train and spar, everything was just so natural for him. And but yeah, him by far.
Set your dream fight right now. Take any 2 people throughout your career, live, dead, retired.
Roberto Duran and Julio Cesar Chavez. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez was the first world title fight that I worked. I worked with Tony the Tiger Lopez from Sacramento against Julio Cesar Chavez in Monterrey, Mexico, in a baseball stadium. So baseball was my game, right? So that was it. But Roberto Duran, being that my last name is Duran, and you know, that would be the fight I'd like to see. And they're both great fighters.
Who wins?
It's not my job to predict, bro.
whoever has
He
Stitch
said
in
he'd
their
make
corner.
the fight. He didn't say pick a winner.
Yeah, I work on cuts. That's all, man.
That's it. Last question. Dogs or cats?
Cats. You know, I've always studied the feline, you know, when I was a martial artist, because when it comes to balance and quickness and all that, the cats were the best. And, you know, like I was telling my kids, you know, you look at a cheetah run, he runs so quick that their head don't even move, you know, so it's a balance point. So I used to work a lot on balance on my kicks and all that. And so the feline.
Yeah, they actually run different than any other feline, the way they put their feet together. That's the best explanation of the dog or cat answer I think we've had on the show. I love it.
Hey, before we go, let me ask Steven, now that jersey, Papao, is that for the Philadelphia Eagles?
All of them are Eagles.
Oh, okay. So let me tell you. Oh, yeah, there's God. Well, one look back. So here's my story with Randall Cunningham, right? And
here we go.
Yeah. So I'm glad before I moved to Vegas, I had school kickboxing, and I used to work with Dennis Alexu. He was a world champion kickboxer, great athlete, and we fought here in Vegas. And I was still Jacob, right? So after the fights, there's the after fight party, and Randall Cunningham was there, and of course he was a big star at that time. And me and my 3 brothers are talking to him, and we're nobody, you know. There's one guy comes up to him and, hey man, Randall, come here, man. Let me introduce you to these guys. And he says, hold on. He goes, let me finish talking to these guys. Bro, at that point, I never felt so important in my life, you know, that him would tell this guy to wait. Let me finish talking to these guys. Well, he's a pastor here in Las Vegas, and I've done this story hundreds of times, and I've never met him. And my brother says, well, you ought to go over there and meet him. But I will one of these days, and I'll let him know that, you know, that moment that you spent with us, is how I treat fans now. You know, people say, "Hey, man, do you mind if I take a picture?" I said, "No." You know, it's when you don't ask that I should be concerned. So Randall Cunningham, and I was looking at your jerseys back there. Yeah, he just kind of, he's one of the guys that influenced me on how I want to treat people from here on. You know, the guy that blew me off when I was trying to learn to be a cut man, he told me F off. I use that as a positive also to teach people how to take care of fighters. So yeah, Randall Cunningham. He don't even know. You know, he might know through seeing an interview or something like that, but I've never met him. But I know I will. And in that moment, I'm gonna say, look, I just
he's pretty active in the Vegas area too. So
yeah, he has a big church out here and everything. And you know, I pass by it all the time, and I think, should I not? Maybe one of these days I will just kind of, you know, walk in and say, you know, just want to let you know I'm Stitch Duran. Cool. How you doing? So
next time I'm in Vegas, I'm gonna have to go look for that. Check that out.
Yeah.
That's neat. The last thing we like to do, Steven, again with his big brain, came up with this amazing concept. We call it the guest spotlight. It's the last couple of minutes for you to end your own interview, Stitch. You can talk about whatever you like. You can promote your products. Tell us your favorite bedtime story. You know, tell us how you guys make tacos. Whatever you want to do. It's the guest spotlight with Jacob Stitch Duran.
Yeah, you know, I always tell these young guys, and I'm sure, you know, we've all been through it, is that one line that we're all scared to cross. You don't cross it, you never get there, right? So, you know, take that challenge. And yeah, it blows my mind just to be in this position that I'm at. I'm just that normal, you know, down-to-earth kid from Panada that, you know, has been the same. But, you know, I'm glad to be in the position I'm in. I know Steve Mazzagatti said, when I was with the UFC, and that was 10 years ago, he said, Stitch, you revolutionized being a cut man. And I think I have, you know, just everybody wants to be a cut man. And, you know, so as I leave it, then I just want to, you know, as I leave this game, I just want people to know that I make this game a lot safer. And with, you know, tools. But yeah, this will be a big year for me, you know, just on exposure wise, on doing the right things. And you know, there was a fighter that passed away in Florida within the last 2 weeks during a fight. Did you guys hear about it?
I have not heard about that.
That's my point. See, nobody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no one wants that attention.
See, nobody has made any mention of that, and that's a serious issue, and that shouldn't be happening. You know, everybody should be getting together and trying to formulate a program of how you eliminate these type of tragedies. From what I understand, he got knocked out during training, preparing for his fight, and he got knocked out in the first round and ended up passing away. So things like that shouldn't happen. But education, that's all I want to do. You know, I appreciate, you know, you guys going to stitchduran.com. That's where I have the training video. And then look for Boxer's Nightmare coming out, hopefully, you know, by the end of the year, just to educate people and make this game a lot safer, bro. You know, there's too many hurt businesses out there.
Love that. Looking forward to that. You can also check out Stitch at Stitch Duran on Instagram and follow those links to get to the training videos as well. Stitch, thank you so much again for joining us today. We look forward to smoking your weed and
it's proper. It's called cannabis.
Cannabis. Yes, it's cannabis now. Can't call it weed anymore. That's low class. We do cannabis now. Steven, as always, amazing guests, another amazing experience. And you get it all right here on Want to Fight About It on That Sports Podcast Network. Stay tuned. We got more coming for you.
Real quick before I want to show you my logos. Check out the logos.
I love those logos. See, I like the circle ones. Yeah, look at the tie stitch premium there. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
With the
taking it back to the old school. All right, man. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Go. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Brother. For Stitch, for Steven, I am Chris Fox. We'll see you guys next time on Want to Fight About It. Like, subscribe, all that. We'll see you next time.